First contact miscalculation. The Krell Imperium had ruled the Orion Arm for 12,000 years. Their sleek, crystalline vessels were living monuments to technological perfection, each one a city-sized marvel housing millions of the Chitnus beings. The Krell had watched stars die and civilizations rise and fall, always maintaining their position at the apex of galactic society through superior technology, numbers, and ruthless efficiency. Admiral Zorvac stood on the command deck of the Infinite Dominance, the flagship of the Krell's 7th Fleet. 16 kilometers of perfectly engineered destruction, it was considered one of the greatest achievements in galactic shipbuilding. Around him, junior officers monitored holographic displays with their compound eyes, their mandibles clicking in the distinctive rhythm that served as the Krell equivalent of efficient workplace chatter. Admiral Sub-Commander Laxvel approached, his carapace glinting with the iridescent markings of House Vel. Our long-range sensors have detected unauthorized vessels in the Epsilon Eridani sector. Zorvac's antenna twitched with mild interest. The Epsilon Eridani system wasn't technically within Imperial borders, but the Krell considered it part of their sphere of influence, a staging area for eventual expansion. Identification, he asked, his voice filtering through the translator module with a metallic resonance. Unknown configuration, sir, not matching any known species in our registry. Based on their propulsion signatures, they appear to be using primitive fusion drives. 5 vessels in total. Zorvac flicked a limb dismissively. Newcomers, likely another species taking their first steps into interstellar travel. This happened every few centuries. Some upstart civilization would develop basic interstellar capability and stumble into Krell territory, unaware of the protocols and power structures that govern civilized space. Display, he ordered. The central hologram shifted to show 5 blocky, utilitarian vessels. They lacked the elegant lines of Krell engineering or even the organic curves of the Vestians. Instead, they seemed cobbled together from geometric shapes, cylinders, rectangles, and spheres connected by a maze of external infrastructure. Solar panels extended like awkward wings, and what appeared to be primitive weapon systems dotted the hulls haphazardly. "Scan them," Zorvac commanded. "Already complete, Admiral. They appear to be using basic metallic alloys. Steel, titanium, some carbon composites. Nothing exotic. Energy readings suggest nuclear fission power with fusion propulsion. Weapons appear to be chemical projectiles and basic directed energy. Rudimentary deflection screens, no true shield technology detected." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in amusement. They're practically in space-faring infancy. "We've intercepted some of their communications, sir. They call themselves humans from a planet called Earth. Their language has been processed through our xenolinguistic database." "Open a channel," Zorvac ordered. "Let's educate these newcomers on how the galaxy functions." The holographic display shifted again, now showing the interior of one of the human vessels. A female stood at what appeared to be a command console. She had dark skin, no exoskeleton, and a covering of artificial material. Clothing, Zorvac recalled from xenobiology briefings on soft-bodied species. "This is Admiral Zorvac of the Krell Imperium 7th Fleet. You have entered territory under Krell protection. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." The human showed no sign of fear or intimidation, unusual for a species encountering the Krell for the first time. Most reacted with appropriate awe. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the United Earth Exploration Fleet. We are on a peaceful mission of scientific discovery and resource mapping. Our records indicate this is unclaimed space. We were unaware of any territorial designations." Zorvac's antenna twitched in irritation at the human's casual tone. "Your ignorance of galactic cartography is not our concern. The Epsilon Eridani sector has been under Krell supervision for 2,000 years. Your presence here is unauthorized." Something flickered in the human's expression. Not fear, but calculation, which puzzled the Admiral. "We apologize for the misunderstanding," she replied evenly. Perhaps we could discuss navigation rights. We're merely passing through on our way to survey the Ta City system. Unacceptable, Zorvac responded. You will power down your drives, deactivate your weapon systems, and prepare to be boarded for inspection. The Krell Imperium does not negotiate with undeveloped species. You will be escorted back to your home system, where you will remain until the Imperium determines you are ready for proper interstellar relations. Captain Reyes raised an eyebrow, a human expression Zorvac couldn't interpret. That's a generous offer, Admiral, but I'm afraid we must decline. Earth doesn't recognize the authority of the Krell Imperium over unclaimed space. We're happy to establish diplomatic channels for future coordination, but we won't be submitting to boarding or escort. The audacity of this primitive species was unprecedented. Zorvac's carapace flushed deep purple with indignation. You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. You will comply, or we will use force. You have one planetary rotation to consider your position. He signaled for the communication to be terminated. Sir, Laxvel approached cautiously, noting the Admiral's agitated state. Should I prepare boarding parties? No, Zorvac replied. Deploy the fleet in standard intimidation formation. These humans need to understand their place in the galactic order. Once they've had time to consider their situation, they'll recognize the futility of resistance. 16 Krell warships emerged from subspace around the human vessels, moving into a spherical formation that would allow for simultaneous fire from all angles. It was an unnecessary display of force against such primitive craft, but Zorvac believed in the psychological impact of overwhelming superiority. Sir, one of the sensor operators interrupted. We're detecting energy fluctuations from the human vessels. Zorvac turned his attention back to the tactical display. Explain. They appear to be reconfiguring, Admiral. The blocky human ships seem to be undergoing a transformation. Panels shifted, revealing previously concealed systems. The awkward solar arrays retracted, and what had appeared to be external infrastructure rearranged itself into more streamlined configurations. Sir, energy readings are spiking across all 5 vessels. Before Zorvac could respond, a communication request chimed through the system. Open the channel, he ordered, his tone now cautious. Captain Reyes appeared again, but her demeanor had changed. The casual politeness was gone, replaced by a cold professionalism. Admiral Zorvac, I wanted to inform you that we've activated our defensive systems. What you saw earlier was our standard exploration configuration. We prefer to appear unassuming when meeting new civilizations. The tactical display updated with new sensor readings that made no sense to Zorvac. Where moments before there had been 5 primitive vessels, now there were 5 warships with energy signatures that rivaled his own fleets. Impossible, he whispered. Not impossible, Reyes replied, having heard him. Just efficient. Humanity learned long ago that advertising our capabilities often leads to unnecessary conflict. We found it beneficial to be underestimated initially. Sir, Laxvel's voice had taken on a nervous quality Zorvac had never heard before. Their weapon systems are unlike anything in our database. They appear to be using some form of gravity manipulation technology we thought was theoretical. Zorvac felt the first stirrings of doubt. In 12,000 years of space travel, the Krell had encountered hundreds of species, but none had ever concealed their true technological capacity to this degree. Human deception is unexpected, he managed finally. Explain yourself, Captain Reyes. It's not deception, Admiral. It's prudence. Earth has been exploring space for only 3 centuries, but we've learned to be cautious. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and species that showcase their technological achievements often become targets. Our sensors indicate your weapons are powered and locked on our vessels, Zorvac observed. As are yours on ours, Reyes countered. The difference is, we didn't start with threats. We offered conversation. Zorvac considered his options. The Krell Imperium had built its reputation on never backing down, but the tactical situation had changed dramatically. Fighting these humans might result in unacceptable losses to his fleet, and for what? An unimportant system the Imperium hadn't even formally claimed. Perhaps, he said carefully, choosing words that wouldn't compromise the Imperium's dignity, there has been a miscommunication. The Epsilon Eridani sector is of interest to the Krell Imperium, but formal territorial claims have not been registered with the Galactic Council. Rhea's expression softened slightly. Then I suggest we start over, Admiral. Earth is interested in peaceful relations with all species, including the Krell. We have much to learn from each other, I'm sure. Zorvak's antennae twitched as he processed this diplomatic opening. The Krell Imperium is willing to establish preliminary discussions regarding shared access to the region. Excellent, Rheia nodded. We'll power down our offensive systems if you'll do the same. A gesture of good faith. After a moment's hesitation, Zorvak gave the order. The Krell vessels reduced their combat readiness, and sensors confirmed the humans were doing the same. As the tension on the bridge eased, Zorvak found himself intrigued by these deceptive humans. Any species that could hide such advanced technology behind a facade of primitiveness was either extremely cautious or extremely dangerous, possibly both. The galaxy had just become a more complicated place. The Awakening. 3 days into negotiations with the humans, Admiral Zorvak found himself fascinated and disturbed in equal measure. The diplomatic vessel from Earth had docked with the Infinite Dominance, bringing a small delegation led by Ambassador Helena Chen, a diminutive human female whose sharp intelligence belied her unimposing physical presence. Your ship architecture is remarkable, Chen commented during a tour of the flagship's central concourse. The crystalline support structures must provide exceptional strength-to-weight ratios. They are grown, not built, Zorvak explained, taking unexpected pride in educating the human. Krell ships begin as seed crystals cultivated in zero gravity. We guide their development over decades until they reach maturity. Bioengineering on a massive scale, Chen nodded appreciatively. Humans have experimented with similar concepts, but we tend toward more immediate solutions. That was the understatement of the galactic cycle, Zorvak thought. In the days since their first encounter, Krell intelligence had been frantically analyzing human technology, and the results were baffling. Humans didn't seem to follow any consistent technological progression path. Their developments were erratic, opportunistic, and often contradictory. Cutting-edge gravity manipulation alongside relatively primitive computer systems, advanced material science, but inefficient energy distribution. Most species develop technology in predictable stages, building logically upon previous discoveries. Humans, it seemed, jumped chaotically between technological tracks, pursuing whatever immediate solution presented itself without regard for the elegant symmetry of proper scientific advancement. Admiral, Sub-Commander Laxvel approached urgently, breaking protocol by interrupting the diplomatic tour. We've detected anomalous energy readings at the edge of the system. The signature matches no known configuration. Zorvak excused himself from Ambassador Chen and moved to a private communication node. Explain, he demanded. Sir, something is emerging from subspace. The signature is massive, larger than anything in our records. It's heading directly for our position. Alert status. Recall all personnel to combat stations. Ambassador Chen approached, her expression concerned. Is there a problem? Admiral. Zorvak hesitated only briefly before answering. The Imperium typically kept strategic information from lesser species, but these humans had already proven themselves technologically capable. We've detected an unknown entity entering the system. As a precaution, we're preparing defensive measures. Chen's hand moved to a communication device on her wrist. I should alert our ships as well. Before Zorvak could respond, the flagship's emergency alarms activated. The holographic displays throughout the concourse shifted to tactical mode, showing a massive object materializing at the system's edge. By the first hive, Laxvel whispered as the object came into focus. It defied easy description. a writhing mass of dark matter and energy, roughly spherical but constantly shifting, with tendrils of blackness extending outward like probing fingers. It was enormous, at least 30 kilometers in diameter, dwarfing even the infinite dominance. "What is that?" Chen asked, her composure impressive given the circumstances. "Unknown," Zorvac admitted. "Nothing like this appears in Krell records." "Admiral," a communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission. I think. It's not using any standard protocol, but our systems are interpreting it as communication." "Display," Zorvac ordered. The holographic projection flickered, showing not a visual image but a pulsing pattern of light and shadow. A voice emerged from the ship's communication system, but it wasn't sound in any conventional sense. It was as if the concept of speech was being forcibly translated into audible form, creating a discordant harmony that hurt to hear. "We are the void. We hunjir. We consumi. You are sustenance." The message repeated 3 times before terminating. "Sir," the sensor officer reported, "the entity is accelerating toward our position. At current velocity, intercept in 17 minutes. Zorvac turned to Chen. "Ambassador, return to your ships immediately. The Krell fleet will engage this threat." Chen shook her head. "With respect, Admiral, that thing is bigger than both our fleets combined. This isn't a time for separation, but cooperation." "What do you propose?" Zorvac asked, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "Let me contact our ships. We have technology that might help, but we'll need to coordinate with your fleet." Zorvac hesitated only briefly. Krell military doctrine forbade joint operations with lesser species, but doctrine hadn't anticipated whatever this void entity was. "Proceed," he ordered. Within minutes, the human delegation had established a direct communication link with their vessels. Captain Rice appeared in holographic form, now joined by several other humans in what appeared to be a technical briefing room. "We've analyzed the entity," Rice reported. "It appears to be a form of sentient dark energy, something our physicists have theorized but never encountered. Conventional weapons will likely be ineffective. The Krell Imperium possesses the most advanced weaponry in the galaxy," Zorvac stated, perhaps more defensively than intended. Rice nodded respectfully. "I don't doubt it, Admiral. But this isn't about technological superiority. It's about appropriate countermeasures. Our ships carry experimental phase inversion generators designed to counter dark energy phenomena. They were developed for scientific research, but they might be repurposed as weapons. This creature, if it is a creature, is 30 kilometers across." Laxvel pointed out, "Your 5 ships, even with specialized weapons, cannot generate enough firepower." "No," Chen agreed, "but with 16 Krell warships channeling their energy through our phase inversion matrix, we might create a large enough disruption field." Zorvac's antenna twitched in surprise. "You're suggesting we network our ship's systems with yours, allow you access to Krell power generation technology?" "Yes," Chen said simply, "or we could all die separately." Tactical displays updated. 12 minutes until intercept. Zorvac made his decision. "Begin integration. Laxvel, coordinate with the human technical team." The next 10 minutes were chaos as Krell and human engineers worked frantically to establish compatible interfaces between their vastly different technologies. The humans' adaptability proved crucial. Instead of trying to force compatibility through conventional means, they created an entirely new interface protocol on the spot, using principles Zorvac didn't fully understand. "Integration at 70%, Laxvel reported. "It's the best we can do with the time constraints." "It'll have to be enough," Rice said from her ship. "The phase inversion field is charging. We'll only get one shot at this." The void entity was now visible through the flagship's observation portals, a churning darkness that seemed to devour the starlight around it. Sensors indicated it was accelerating, as if eager to reach its prey. "All ships, maintain formation," Zorvac ordered. Divert all non-essential power to shields. The 21 vessels, 16 Krell and 5 human, arranged themselves in a precise geometric pattern. Energy began flowing from the Krell ships into the human vessels, which were positioned at key nodes in the formation. Phase inversion field at maximum capacity, Rise announced. Ready on your order, Admiral. Zorvac felt a moment of profound clarity. In 12,000 years of space dominance, the Krell had never truly cooperated with another species as equals. Yet here they were, trusting these deceptive, unpredictable humans with their survival. Initiate, he commanded. A pulse of brilliant white energy erupted from the human ships, connecting them in lines of pure light that formed a complex geometric pattern. This energy web expanded outward, engulfing the approaching void entity. Where the light touched the darkness, the entity's substance seemed to unravel, its tendrils dissolving into nothing. A screech of conceptual agony filled the communication channels as the void entity tried to escape the expanding field. It contracted, attempting to pull away, but the phase inversion effect had already penetrated too deeply. The entity imploded, collapsing in on itself until nothing remained but a shimmering distortion in space that quickly faded. Silence fell across the fleet as both species processed what had just occurred. Finally, Captain Rice broke the quiet. All ships report successful operation. The entity has been neutralized. Zorvac turned to Ambassador Chen. Seeing humans in an entirely new light. Your species is not what we initially assessed. Chen smiled. We get that a lot, Admiral. The deception in your ship's design, the irregular technological development, the ability to create new interface protocols in minutes, these are not traits the Krell would expect from a truly advanced civilization. Yet you defeated a threat we could not have countered alone. Humans evolved on a particularly challenging planet, Chen explained. We faced constant threats from our environment, from predators, from each other. We learned to adapt quickly, to use whatever tools were available, and to hide our capabilities when necessary. You are a contradiction, Zorvac observed. Technologically advanced yet primitive in approach. Peaceful yet prepared for war. Open in communication, yet secretive in capability. We're complicated, Chen acknowledged with a smile. Just like every species, I imagine. Zorvac considered this. The Krell had always categorized species by their technological development, assuming a linear progression toward perfect efficiency. Humans defied such categorization. They were chaotic, unpredictable, innovative in ways the methodical Krell would never have conceived. The Krell Imperium may have been hasty in our initial assessment of humanity, Zorvac said carefully. Perhaps more formal diplomatic relations would be beneficial to both our species. Chen's smile widened. We'd welcome that, Admiral. There's room enough in the galaxy for both our approaches. As the human delegation prepared to return to their ships, Zorvac found himself contemplating a future he had never imagined. One where the ancient Krell Imperium found itself learning from a species that had barely begun its journey among the stars. These humans, with their deceptive ships and chaotic innovation, had not merely survived their first encounter with the Imperium. They had earned its respect. And in 12,000 years of Krell history, that was perhaps the most surprising development of all. The galaxy would never be the same again. And perhaps, Zorvac thought, that was for the best.